Go.
All right. Hey guys, it's Kirby and James show. James, come on around. I want you to meet James Stout. This is my big buddy, and we're going to work on some stuff today. I'm just going to kind of vomit some things out and share it with the group, and you guys can digest it however you want. This is kind of our first chance of getting to do a video, so maybe there'll be more to come. Just depends on how successful this one is. But before I get started, I kind of want to address that, you know, what I'm going to work on today is just like some of the stuff that you can do. These are just options. They're not the only thing that I do. We're going to talk about some of the reasons why I like some of this stuff. But as we all know, for everything we do in martial arts, there's a counter. There's a reason why it may or may not work. Obviously, the more confident you get in your deliveries, the more you practice your deliveries, the more that your deliveries make sense, you know, the more successful you're going to be. So we're going to kind of cover some things and just throw it out there for the group, and feel free to jump in and critique however you want. And again, if you get something great from this, far out. Let's set these down. So one of the things that I wanted to cover today, when we get in a street fight, 90% of the time, this is what they're shooting for. You know, they want to hurt our, they want to go to our head. And what I see a lot, and especially more of the traditional stylists and stuff, is they don't do a lot of consideration for how to cover that head, you know, what to do. A lot of the times guys will, boom, they'll throw that punch and their head's up above that shoulder line, you know. And the problem with that is James is a big guy, and if I'm fighting James and bam, I tag him with something, if he's already got in his frame of mind that he's going to hit me, I may get that first shot in, but James still gets his punch in. And that happens a lot. I mean, if you've been in fights or if you've seen a lot of fights, you know that's the kind of thing that happens. I mean, that's why they make hollow points. I need to drop him with that bullet, not just put a bullet through him, because it's not necessarily going to stop him from doing whatever he's going to do. And that's part of another thing that I'm going to cover is how to ensure that what we're doing is getting him to understand it's being done on him. Because a big part of what we do doesn't necessarily mean it's going to equate to him knowing he got hit. If his adrenaline's pumping, or if he's high on drugs, or if he's just truly a badass mofo, you know, I could be in here hitting him with stuff, and he could just be unloading on me. So I need to make sure that he knows he's getting hurt. I need him to understand there's damage being done here. But in the process, I need to make sure that I'm taking care of myself and not exposing myself to real damage. So a lot of the times what I like to do, and I do this with fighters, you know, I do believe that there's a methodology to street fighting and a methodology to sparring and competing, but the lines cross in a lot of ways, but then they're also different in a lot of ways. And so for example, you know, I like if I'm back here, I'm more comfortable because of the gap and because of my knowledge and experience and timing and all of those things that I have down pretty well. I'm pretty comfortable with my hands lower, but as I get closer, I like to get smaller. And I like to create a little pocket for my head. And one of the things that I really am conscious of is when this chin is above these shoulder lines, you know, his big stuff can come in and do all sorts of damage. So for example, I'm a guy, I teach a lot of guys to fight with both hands up, but I personally like to have this hand down, and I let this hand do most of the dealing with stuff that's coming in, because I'm real good at getting my head out of the way, and I'm real good about putting the shoulder like right here and putting my chin against the shoulder. So if things come from over here, you know, a lot of the times I'll just kind of roll it and then step in. This is the hand that usually deals with stuff that comes in. If it's a hook, you know, I'll work this way. But I'm all about entry. I'm not a fan of going back. If I go back, it's usually a mirror to then counter, because my goal is to do damage to him. If I don't have an answer, then going back is obviously, you know, a viable option. It's certainly better than standing there taking damage. But what I consider the danger zone is right here where James's power has its maximum. When James reaches out, this is where he's going to be the most powerful with his strikes. So I either need to be away from that, or I need to be inside. Now the beauty about being inside for me is this is where I can do damage. You know, back here, I might be able to like, boom, throw a kick or something. But I really like to be in here. This is my comfort zone. This is where I prefer to be. And so getting here is what's crucial. And I don't believe in being pretty. You know, I could care less if somebody goes, well, the shit you do is really ugly. Okay. I like to be effective. And what I don't like to do is pretend that I have all the answers. So, like right now, I'm in my little, I don't want no problems posture. And James is all hell-bent on wanting to do damage to me. At this time, I'm using monitoring skills to read what James is probably thinking. Now, if he's a halfway decent fighter, he's probably going to hide most of that. He may even result to trickery, but usually when a person's all hell-bent on wanting to do damage to you, they're not thinking about trickery, they're thinking about just beating the hell out of you. And so usually you'll be able to tell what they're signaling, what they're telling, what they're telegraphing. But if I can't, I don't want to have to try and guess, because who knows? So that's why I'm not a big fan of reaching out and blocking things. You know, if James throws that big punch, I don't like to throw this kind of a block. Or if James throws that big punch, I don't like to throw this kind of a block. It's an option. But it means that I have to be right with the timing, I have to guess, or I have to respond right. And now there's a lot of exposure here. And I'm still in the danger zone. And so for all of those reasons, I prefer to do ugly karate, or basically if I see James, I like to come in. And now from here, you know, as you saw, I tucked my head down, I got my chin down below my shoulder line, I kind of put my shoulders up, and then I come in, and then from here, you know, now I can do things to James that I'm capable of doing. Now, if I want to step back out and pop him with a kick or whatever, that's always an option. But once I'm inside, you know, that's where I get really comfortable and find that I've got all these little golden nuggets to deal with. So entry is the key. Being able to enter and be safe. Well, two things have to happen in order to make that viable. And that is, one, I need to be able to protect myself. Now, a lot of times, if I don't know if he's a kicker or whatever, I may just pick this leg up and decide to enter on that little skip hop like move. Because this kind of can protect me while I step in and bang, 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 I can put a combo together. If I'm able to read what he's thinking of doing, and I want to be the one to let him move first, well then I'm gonna try to keep my blocks tight. It's just what I prefer to do, you know. And so if James throws a big punch, I'm just gonna let it kind of slam in, and now I'm gonna enter. If he throws that jab, I can pick it off with this lead hand, or I can pick it off with this hand, and then as that hand comes back, now I can go in and do whatever I'm going to do. But I like to get inside as quick as possible. So some of the things that I've done in videos before is I've talked about my metal to magnet concept. And just a quick little update on that. Metal to magnet basically is, this is a giant magnet, this is a big piece of metal, and when I go to strike, I don't bring it back. I strike and it stays. I like to follow it through. The sooner I can disrupt his foundation, the sooner I can make sure he's not doing damage to me. And it's harder for him to anyway. So like for example, we all know about the eye thrust. Like if James comes at me with a knife, hey, I want to get this going as soon as I can. I don't want to have to try and guess. He pulls it back. He's sewing machine. I'm really not down with that. If I see that blade coming, bang, I'm going right here. This is the very first thing I want to do, is inflict some damage. Well, that same type of mentality applies to anything, whether he's fighting with a knife or not. You know, you've got the eyes, and when you go to the eyes, you know, you just kind of push through and get that result. Instead of just going here and doing a quick little flash, that doesn't necessarily stop James' computer from being able to still deliver. I want to make sure that when I strike, whatever that strike is, using that metal to magnet concept, I don't just make contact. I disrupt foundation. When I get James like this, it's really hard for him to finish with any real strength on any of his techniques. So if I go in with a palm strike, I don't want to just hit James. I want to hit James and stiff arm him, like football players do when they run down the field. If I hit James with a jab, I don't want to hit James with a flashing jab. I want to hit James with a jab that I use like a jousting tool, and I get great results from, because now James is right where I can deal with him, you know. That's kind of my mentality about when I get in. I like to look for those kinds of things. I like to utilize things. If we're in and we're tied up and James has got me tied up, I don't like to deal with his strength. What I don't want to do is try to push off because James now hits me. So when he ties me up, a lot of the times, I, again, like to disrupt his foundation. I'll push James back, but you notice I got my arms covering my head, so as I like to push James back, I want to stay on him like a magnet, and at this point, because his foundation's disrupted, this is my opportunity to really get in there and put some big shots on him. So that's a concept I like to use when we tie up or clinch. And then one last little thing, because I know I'm vomiting a bunch of stuff here, is on the sweeps. We talked a little bit about sweeps. James gets in a fighting stance. Pick a stance. All right. Okay, so James is in this stance here. You've got those outside in sweeps. You've got the inside out sweeps. You've got the going in, bang, bang, and hitting them and doing hook sweeps or step through sweeps. And when I talked about that wedge, James's foot right now is pointed forward. So the wedge is actually going this direction. So I can sweep this way or I can sweep this way and get good results. Sometimes it's even better if I like flinch and I get James to do that. And now I find that sweep can work better because he takes a little bit of that weight off that leg. When you do sweeps as opposed to kick, when that foot's turned forward, I like to sweep it. If it's turned this way, I don't mind sweeping it this way because the foot opens as it moves that direction. But sweeping it this way makes it harder because he's got weight on that foot, and that's where that wedge conversation came in at. It's hard to get this foot to go backwards because it's kind of stuck in its position by the weight. So when I see that foot turned 45, that's when I will attack with a leg kick, a groin kick, you know, instead of trying to do maybe a sweep. Now I might step in, bang, bang, and hit him, and then hook sweep. You know, that's certainly an option. Or maybe even step in, bang, bang, hit him, and now go for that sweep. Anyway, there's some things to critique me on or throw some conversations into. Oh, one last thing. I was on the phone last night with Bill Harsey. Alan McGahee, Bill Harsey said to me, you know, I have one regret with Alan, and that was I never hit him as hard as I always wanted to. So, Alan, this is for you. Bill, this is for you. Whoop-ah! Yeah, you recognize that ki, Alan? That was the shit you pulled on me all the time, you animal. Love you guys. Brotherhood.